Greetings. Welcome to Lit with Lloyd. I am your host, Lloyd Russell. And today I have a real treat for you. Betty Auchard is an author that I've known for a number of years. She's written 4 books. I've loved them all. And she is a real treasure. And you're going to enjoy hearing what she has to say.
Gosh.
Hello, Betty.
Hi. Now I love you. Okay.
But welcome.
Yes.
Yes. And let's start with talking about your 4 books, because when you came to our book club probably 6 years ago or so, we read a book called The Home for the Friendless. And that's basically the first book I read of yours before I voraciously read the rest of them. So do you want to start with the books you wrote in the order you wrote them, or how do you want to do it?
Oh, let's do it your way.
Okay. Tell us a couple of things. Tell us first about what the book is about in terms of the childhood and all, and then tell us how old you were when you wrote it.
Okay. The age on that one.
I think that was 80, wasn't it? Weren't you 80 when you wrote that?
I think so.
Yeah, that's what I read on your bio.
Okay, that's what it was then.
Yeah.
I have forgotten some of those. Okay. So how old was I?
You were 80 when you wrote
80,
that.
right. I was 75 when I started writing.
Yes,
Okay.
and we'll talk about that one too.
Okay, so what am I doing now?
Just tell us about the book, what it's about. Tell the listeners what
Okay.
and what prompted you to even write it.
Oh, hell's bells. Okay, one thing at a time.
Yes.
Home for the Friendless is an old title. It goes way, way, way back. And there were different things they used it for. It could be tramps, but it was a group of people trying to keep things, in good shape. But at my point, for further start that over again. With lots of years passing by, Home for the Friendless became a home for abandoned children. And we were not abandoned, but a home for children in trouble or needing help.
Uh-huh.
And so ours was just mostly divorced parents. But there were a few kids who were orphans, but they usually didn't keep them there. These were just families who were in trouble, And so my grandmother was the one who suggested that we go there. And I remember the day that they walked us in there.
Wow.
And I didn't know what it was like. It was actually always quite good. It was, at least we had 5 meals a day. Look, 3 meals a day. We had all kinds of visitors, all kinds of programs. It was really better than it was at home.
Uh-huh.
So my parents really were embarrassed about putting us there. But it was during the Depression, and we were in trouble. And so that's where my grandmother suggested we go. Well, a lot of kids who lived nearby, I found out later, never knew what that building was. And it was it was 1902, I think. It had been a lot of different things. But while we were there, it was just boys in the boys' dorm, girls in the girls, little kids in the nursery, all the food we needed. We were happy. A lot of things. We were treated very well. And our parents could come on Sundays to visit us.
Now, but weren't you there several different times?
Twice. My brother and I
okay.
were on the phone. He lives in Nebraska, and we were talking about it recently. He said, Betty, we went back twice. I said, we did? I kind of remember that they took a try. at being at home, but they couldn't stop fighting. It was mostly my mom triggered things. And so that's the way it went. And then they'd be in trouble again, and we were back. But we felt kind of like big shots, because we've been here before.
Well, your parents, didn't they marry and divorce several times?
Three
yeah, times?
Each other, yeah. They really loved each other. They didn't know how to live together. My mother was also, I don't know if she's chaotic or bipolar or what. She was a talented pianist, just gifted. She really, truly gifted. And she could make a party, just really fly. Anyway, she was lively, and she liked to party, but she had a very short temper. And when she didn't agree with my dad, which they often didn't, she would just get in such a fit of anger that, now it kind of sounds funny, but it wasn't then. She broke all our dishes. She broke dishes. We got more new dishes than any family in the world. But that's how she took, she didn't beat us or anything. She broke dishes.
Wow.
And then they'd end up, she'd be crying and hugging, and they'd be kissing and sorry. And that's just the way it was.
Did they end up together late in life?
No.
No.
And that's when they were better off, because they would go visit each other briefly wherever they lived and say goodbye. And you can erase this if you can't use it. My mom said, I went to see your dad today, and he likes it there, but he's a little confused. He says, you should come here to live. But it wasn't that kind of home. It was like home for the Friendless was. And she says, Basil, you were sick, and you belong here. I am not sick. I don't belong here. He says, Juanita, I am not sick. And so they had started a little Mom said they finally tempered down. And before she left him, this is embarrassing to say, erase it. He tweaked her titties. I said, oh, Mom, my God. He says, she did. As I was going out, he tweaked my titties.
That could conceivably be edited, but that's not our problem.
Okay.
Okay, so the first book you wrote is called Dancing in My Nightgown. And I loved it. It basically was a bunch of little vignettes about being a widow. So how old were you when Denny passed away?
Oh, mercy. Let me think a minute.
Yeah.
Let's see. He died in 1998.
Okay.
Don't remember how old he was, but I was born in 1930. Could you do the math?
Yeah. Yeah. All right. So you wrote a book about that. You wrote the book called Dancing in My Nightgown.
I think I was 75.
And that would have been 2005. So that was 7 years after Denny passed.
That sounds right.
Okay. And what prompted you to write the book?
Oh.
Because you had never written a book before that.
No. I have to think a minute. It'll come back to me, I'm sure. And when it does, I'll interrupt us so I can fill it in.
Did somebody recommend it?
No, I remember now. I remember. Because I was thinking about it recently. Why did I write that book? During my grief is terrible. I mean, it's really difficult. It's like having cancer or something. And I was so heavy with grief that I sat down. I found this paper just recently in all my stuff. I found this paper, and I said, if I write my horrible grief on this one piece of paper, put a date, put it away, look at it in 6 months. Is there a difference in how I feel if I'm not so grieved anymore?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, well, what happened was I didn't put it away. And I kept thinking, where did I start? That's when I started writing, was the day after he died.
Oh, wow.
Because the feeling, you're not grief-stricken right away. Sometimes in 6 weeks, you just fall apart. But most of the time, it's never right after. It's just, you're in shock.
Uh-huh. Plus, you're surrounded by family.
Yeah.
So I guess it's maybe when you're home alone again is when it really hits.
But somehow or other, and I also joined a group. They have a lot of them at different places. And it was helpful because it was a big circle of men and women telling their stories. And I was thinking, I had it light compared to some of these people. But sharing that was a good experience.
Yeah. My father-in-law, he used to always say that if everybody sat in a circle and put their problems in the center, that everybody would take their own problems back.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, isn't that? I mean, that's basically what you're saying.
Oh, I hope I don't forget that. Remember that.
I will.
Okay,
I will.
That's interesting.
I'll email it to you.
Yeah, you know what? There was a lady who came there for several years and did the same thing over and over, and nobody took her out and said, "This isn't very healthy." That was weird.
Yeah.
And she's probably lonely.
Yeah. I would imagine that there is comfort in being around people that have gone through at least somewhat similar situations. Okay, so you wrote down all these different stories, and what made you put them into a book?
Oh, I don't quite remember because I was just writing them. Oh, wait a minute. I learned how to contact friends on the computer. The computer was fairly new to people. And one of my faraway friends, I sent her a story.
Uh-huh.
And then she said, "Oh, I love that." And I sent her a couple more, and she said, "What are you doing with them?" They're just in my notebook. You should put them in a book. And I know it came from her.
Yeah, her suggestion.
Yeah. So I don't remember exactly what all I went through, actually, to be honest with you. Yeah.
But, okay, so basically you wrote it at 75. You're 75 years of age, at your first book.
Yeah.
But there were 3 more to follow.
Because I couldn't stop writing. It's just like writing was, to me, was just medicine.
Yeah.
And I didn't want it to be heavy and burdened. I don't want to read this all over again and feel crappy.
Yeah.
And I just let my own personality go. Like when I really couldn't think straight and felt heavy with grief, I would do something. And there's one of the books is Dancing in My Nightgown.
Yeah.
The Rhythms of Widowhood. Man, that was my medicine. And I got really good. I just wanted someone to photograph me.
That was one of the stories, was actually
Yeah.
Oh, it's a great title, too.
Oh, and I got really good at it. And we had it wasn't wood floor, it was covered with rug. And I had to find the right channel of music that was with tap, 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 really. I just loved it. It just was like medicine.
Yeah, I can certainly understand that.
Yeah.
And plus it kind of enabled you to relive so many good moments in your life.
It was just, isn't that the name of one of the books, Dancing in My Nightgown?
That's the first one you wrote.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Okay.
It's Dancing in Your Nightgown, The Rhythms of Widowhood. So yeah, that was.
And there are the rhythms to widowhood, up and down.
Yeah. Okay, so then 5 years later, you wrote The Home for the Friendless, which, as I said, that's the one that I read first and we had for our book club.
I didn't remember how long, because I remember there was a big long gap when I was thinking about all this that we were going to talk about, and I couldn't remember why was that big gap. And I think that book took a long time to write.
Uh-huh.
And it wasn't long after I got it done and all wrapped up that I realized, I've got more stories to tell.
Wow.
And so was that my second book?
Second book was The Home for the Friendless.
I bombed into it, yeah.
Wow. Well, I mean, that book, The Home for the Friendless, there's so much stuff that goes on that I imagine it would have taken a little while to write it.
Yeah, it did kind of. I think the second half of that book is when I meet Denny.
Ah.
I don't remember, but there's something about that being just the first half of the book.
Okay.
And I think my memory kept thinking, well, what happened next? And Denny always kept coming in.
Yeah.
To it.
Yeah. Okay. Well, we have to take a quick break, and then we shall come back and talk about more of your books.
Okie dokie.
All right, we'll be right back, people.
Thank you to the City of Montecirino for their continued support of KCAT Public Media. The City of Montecirino has enabled KCAT to inspire, educate, entertain, and inform our community through the magic of television and digital media for over 38 years. Thank you.
And we are back with Betty Auchard. Betty, we have up here on the screen a picture of your book cover for The Home for the Friendless. It's a fantastic cover. How did the cover get made? Did you have an old picture that you could use?
No, I had a picture of the home. And I don't know who I got in the family or who did it, but there was a picture that we had taken. Oh, wait a minute. I could swear we kids were standing in front of it.
Yeah.
And I think my grandmother brought us there because she said, why would you want to remember this place? And Mom says, I want my kids to do what they want. And I said, well, I want us to be in front of the home.
Well, it looks like a nice home.
Oh, it was really fine. It's gone now, but it was it was fine. We were lucky.
Yeah, that's very cool. All right, so at the age of 75, you write, Dancing in My Nightgown. At the age of 80, you write The Home for the Friendless, and at the age of 85, you write Living with 12 Men. So tell us what that's about.
Oh, okay. Denny, my husband Denny, took me as a bride to York College, Nebraska, Church College, where he taught, because he was the dorm parent for 12 boys who lived upstairs. We had a really neat old house. The boys were all upstairs. I was downstairs. There's these doors are pulled together to separate our front room from their front room.
Uh-huh.
That door revealed a lot of things, and I stopped opening it.
Good call.
And I was paid to keep the boys upstairs bathroom clean. Ugh. But I did it because I wanted this extra money to buy a blender. Everybody had a blender but me. Anyway, it was, we were quite separated from them. And we'd open it on special occasions. But the boys were really neat guys. except for one of them. And I could tell you that one, and you could erase it. But anyway, the bad one ended up bad out in the world.
Oh.
He was a minister, but he was fired, and he ended up in jail, and the prisoners killed him.
Oh, my goodness.
And I really disliked him.
Oh, my gosh.
And he didn't come down for special things. You know what? He looked like a rat. I'm not making this up. If you look at a rat, there's a kind of a odd, he was half rat, I think.
I'm trying to envision his parents, and I'm having a little bit of trouble with that.
He had a beautiful singing voice. Oh, the other thing. There was a girl who sang in our choir. They were boyfriend, girlfriend. She just didn't have a mind of her own. She was a lovely singer, but in a group she would say, yes, that's right, I believe that. She never contributed anything. And the other students told me this. He said, Betty, do you know when you and Denny are gone on vacation? He makes her, she doesn't belong there in the boys' dorm, but they think he thought she was pregnant, and he made her walk up this heavy basket of wet clothing to the top over and over.
Whoa.
So that she could have, so I never knew how it ended. All I know is how he ended.
Yeah.
Can you imagine in a church college?
No, I can't imagine it anywhere.
Anywhere.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
How long did you and Denny live and act as dorm parents?
It was 3 years.
3 years.
And we left because they had a devastating fire that destroyed the main building. And Denny had finished his work anyway and was ready to find a job. But we were there 3 years. We kept in touch with a lot of the boys. The boys were really neat. They played tricks. And I said, how did they get in here? I said, they can get in anywhere, Betty. And I said, aren't you going to ball them out? I said, no, we need to just ignore it. It was always a trick they played.
Did you have any of the boys for all 3 years?
Most of them.
Most of them, wow.
There were just a few little changes, like someone graduating, and
a new one coming in to replace.
Yeah, but the younger boys were there all 4 years.
Are you still in touch with any of them?
Not anymore.
No.
Because I don't know. I went back several times for reunions, and it was people I knew, but I don't know anyone anymore.
No,
I donated a large amount of money because they were building a new main building, and I know they put the Auchard family something up on the wall.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and because I at one time, only one time I saw it, and I don't know if they're still there. I don't know why they would get rid of it.
Yeah.
But anyway, I was a bride there.
Yeah, I mean, you were what? Were you early 20s then?
No, I was almost 19.
Really? So you were the same age as the boys in the school?
Yeah.
Or in the dorm?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
And
how much?
Go ahead.
How much older was Denny than you?
4.5 years.
Okay.
Yeah, and we were so different in personality, but we really got together well.
Yeah.
One day, I was in charge of washing the bathroom and everything, and one day, one of the boys, I know who it was, because I just knew him, squirted me with water and ran back real quick, and I looked around, and I realized I know who it was, and I went downstairs, and I don't know why we had a spray can, but we did, so I filled it with ice water, went back up and with my apron, and squirted him. And he jumped up, he expected me to come, and I was going downstairs, and he was up, and I was shooting up, and he was shooting down. And who walks in but Denny? Denny doesn't do things like that. And we stopped. And Denny did a fake laugh, I could tell. I said, "You're mad at?" He says, "Betty, you've got to remember that you're professor's wife." And it just made me want to kick him.
I could just see that. That is so great. All right, so what made you decide to write that book? Did somebody give you an idea?
No, when I started writing, I had to start making a list because they just, everything. And I found those lists when just a couple weeks ago, I said, "Oh my gosh, I forgot I did this." And I'd write down about, and it was a long list. I didn't write about, and then when I started writing, I went to the list, and I knew that my friend and editor would put them in order. I couldn't worry about putting them in order. I just get them. It was fun.
All right, but we got one more to talk about.
Okay.
And the title might be a little bit deceiving. It's called Posing Naked.
It was my last book.
It was your last book. And obviously you were probably late 80s when you wrote that?
I don't remember.
A couple of years. Well, you were 85 when you wrote Living with 12 Men. And Posing Naked was after that, right?
Right. That was my last book.
Yeah.
It was. Oh, I can tell you this. It was 3 years ago I wrote that book.
Wow. So you were 89, basically, when you wrote
guess.
that. And tell us about that one. What's that about?
Okay, no, wait. What was it again?
Posing Naked.
Yes, okay. And if you read the story, then you understand it.
Of course.
But it's not going to catch readers. And, okay, in my art class, whatever we majored in, we had to take something really different. So what I chose really different was sculpture. And so it was fun, and I learned a whole lot. But I didn't want to be one of the volunteer students to be, for the class project, to be naked. And our professor said, "Please do not do this off campus, because basically it's kind of dangerous, and I need to be, here." And my thinking was, he just wants to see us naked. And so my 4 girlfriends, we said, we're going to get together on our own, and one of us will pose. Well, naturally, I thought one of them would, but they wouldn't. So I posed. And I posed, I said, okay, I do not want my boobs to show. The rest isn't too bad, but okay, I'm going to stand like this, standing up, just hiding them like I'm cold. And it was really a job. My husband was out of town.
Oh, good thing.
He wouldn't have allowed it, and I would have gone along with it, because he was a professor. Who's all going to see this statue? The whole world. Anyway, it was a white statue, and when it was finished, Danny helped me, so it was heavy, get it off the campus. And I didn't help, it was my oldest son and Denny were carrying this straight dead body, white. And they were trying to make it out to our car, and people stopped and they had to put me down, because Dave was laughing so hard, he said, "It's okay." And Denny said, "You got to stop laughing, we got to get this thing home." And when we got out finally to the car, I barely fit in the trunk, just barely. And they had to kind of, I don't know, do funny things with everything else to fit me in there, because my feet kept hanging out. I said, "I don't want those hanging out, they could break off." And it was a huge job.
Where is that statue now?
Oh, it's all over the place. before we decided that it should not be downstairs. And so we put it in the guest bedroom. And when my family came from Kansas to visit, Carl, I said, this is the only guest bedroom. And this is a statue. He says, what the hell? I said, well, it's a long story, but I had to pose for it. And he said, oh my gosh. And so he said, well, I'll sleep my back to it, and my wife can sleep here. And when he woke up in the night, turned, he was panic-stricken, and it woke us all up. He was just fighting himself. And I said, I mustn't do that again. We moved it from one place to another. No matter where that thing was, it was in the way. And so we moved it down to the kitchen, corner in the kitchen, where I could hide it with a sheet when I had to.
Yeah.
But otherwise, just leave it there. One day, I was talking with my friend who came to visit, and she said, what's with this? You know, I told her the whole story about it. And I said, to be honest, it's been a real problem trying to find some place to keep it. You know, that statue fell over. And we were going, she said, you hurt its feelings. Something was, it wasn't anything, except that it was strange. It fell over and the head broke off and rolled off.
Oh my gosh. And that was the end of that.
Not quite, because we had to, it's heavy. And Denny says, I'm going to have to break this up in pieces. It was very hard. And the day that it was full of junk, and then my white pieces of body, and right in the top was the head. And he says, oh my gosh. The garbage men, they weren't trucks that came. The garbage men, and he says, well, let's just look out when the garbage comes and see what happens. It was funny, because the guy went up to it and went, and then he tried, he went up closer, and then he put the lid on again. He didn't touch it. They didn't empty the market. So Denny says, I've got to break that head up. And it took a lot of breaks.
Oh, okay.
The statue was really like a family story.
Yeah, for sure. All right, I have one other question for you. How can people buy your books? Are any of the books available for sale?
Oh, yeah. That's a good question. At one time, they were online. Selling your books is a big, hard deal. Who's going to sell them?
Yeah.
Well, I sold a lot of them myself because I was a speaker, and I loved speaking, and so we got rid of a lot of books. And then when they were really down to nothing, it was just a matter of let's see. What was it we were? You said what was your question?
Are any of them available for sale?
Oh yeah, they are. And the easiest way is through Thrift or Abe or any used book.
Okay.
You can get them.
Okay.
And they might even be signed but they're books that have been given back to the library.
And you go online to get them to those used places?
Yeah, all online.
Okay. And are all four available?
Good question. I haven't checked it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I didn't think to check it either.
See, I used to have a whole bunch of Living with 12 Men, but I sent it back to my hometown librarian because I liked her a lot, and they made a big to-do about it. And they sold all the books. I said it was a donation to the library.
Nice. Okay, well, I think that's going to do it for us. I have one complaint, is that my cheeks hurt from laughing and smiling, but that's a good thing. So that was delightful.
Well, what about your T-shirt?
No, my cheeks.
Oh, I thought you said your T-shirt.
No, let me see. No, my
I just
T-shirt's
feel
fine.
You were drooling.
Yeah, no. My cheeks hurt from laughing and smiling at those stories.
Well, it's so fun to tell them.
Yeah, they're great. Everybody's going to love them.
Yeah, thanks
All
so
right.
much.
I want to thank Betty Auchard for being on. That is we are closing the book on today's podcast. I always forget what I'm supposed to say. I definitely want to thank KCAT and all their people for sponsoring us, for supporting us, for making this thing happen. It's always a pleasure to work with everybody here. And we will see you all next time.
You just heard Lit with Lloyd here on KCAT Radio. Explore all our KCAT original programming at kcat.org/radio.